Hello and welcome to the studio. Having done some drawing of my folded paper zig-zag book, where I've explored shapes and angles and light and shade. Let me show you the drawings. Shaded with pencil. Thought about edges, how I can describe where one face of the folded paper folds round into the next face and the difference in light, and how I can show those edges without putting lines in. Next thing I want to do is to think about how shadows affect colours. So I have painted some colour onto the other side of the folded book, so I can see. Let me just get the lighting right. I can see where. Let's try it that way. There we are. It's a bit of a cast shadow. Here we are. Some cast shadows from this fold here. I can see how shadows affect colours and what colours there may be in the shadows themselves. So I'll turn the camera around to the drawing desk. I want to think about another colour to put on here in this band through the middle. Perhaps the purple, as it's quite it's a strong and can be a dark colour, and it's the opposite colour to yellow. Let's just see what effect it has. Might need to make quite a lot of this because the brush is going to drink a lot of it up. Big brush, needs a lot of paint. How's that for strength? Test it out. Oh, that's really nice and strong. That was what just came off the pan, wasn't it? Let's mix it with the water. Oh, that's not as strong. Need to put some more in. That'll do. If I decide to make it stronger, I can always do another layer over the top. See how the brush is drinking up the colour? That's a dry brush, so because I didn't want to dilute the colour at all. Slurping it all up. That's okay. Quite like the the dry brushy bits. A bit more in there. I think that looks pretty nice. It's just really for an exercise, but it's quite nice to make it look interesting as well. The black band I'm going to make a bit stronger. I think I've got some black. I think that is black there. Yeah, looks like it. It's just some tube colour I must have squeezed out at some time, and it's gone dry, but of course I can just re-wet it, get the colour activated again, test its strength. Yeah, lovely. Now my brush is wet. I'll just dry it on a piece of newspaper, which is off camera. I've just dried it off a little bit. Oh, look at that lovely purple water. Yeah, brush is dry enough. Soak up that colour. It will have diluted it a little bit as well, but it's okay. Let's see how it turns out. Now that's the palest bit there, isn't it? Just make that a bit more positive and strong. And there as well. Okay. It'll sort of even it up somewhat. Right, so that's going to dry, and then it'll be my subject to draw. I'm going to use graphite pencil to draw with again, but for the colour, and this is up to you what you use, but I'm going to use my coloured pencils, water-soluble pencils, all of these. Some of them are what's called Graphitint. That's those, Graphitint, which all have a slightly greyish tinge to the colours because they're graphite and colour. And then there's Inktense pencils here as well, which are much more brilliant and bright in colour. And then just some standard watercolour pencils at this end. I'm just refining my drawing that I've got ready. You can see where I've put in my guidelines and where I've changed my mind a few times. There I had this line coming down to there, and I've changed the angle at the top. I've brought this point a little bit higher up and changed the angle down to here. And I think it's reasonably close for a working drawing. And what I'm going to do is I will use my putty rubber to tidy up this drawing, and I will then I'll test some colours, because I can see quite a lot of colour in the shadows. It's not just a matter of the tonal value. It is a matter of the tonal value, but the tones have colour to them as well. They're not just the grey of graphite. So I'm thinking of doing a sample on a spare sheet of paper where I shade an area with graphite and put the colours of the bands over the graphite, and test the colours out with graphite on top of them as well, just to see what it would look like if I just did a grey graphite shadow with the yellow and purple and black bands. But also, as I'm seeing quite a lot of colour in the shadows, I want to try out some sort of yellowy, browny, maybe greeny colours. I see, perhaps pinkish. I see quite a lot of warm colour in the shadows. So I'll get this tidied up and then come back to you when I'm ready to do the colour testing. one reasonably well tidied up drawing. And I've just indicated here, here and here where the cast shadows are going to fall. And let's put these angles in as well. Each of these is relating to some law of perspective too, which is interesting. So that's more acute, that's a little bit more open. That splits that shape about in half, and this one, top angle, is more acute than this one. It's the fascinating thing about drawing is you find out so much about a subject that you don't really consider when you just look at it. The actual act of drawing enables you to investigate and find out so much more about the visual world. Wonderful. Just making sure that I get my the line there that indicates the edge of the situation the book is sitting in, lined up. There we are, enough. So, to test the colours, if I create an area that's like a fold in the book and shade it in with graphite, just going to do this quite quickly and roughly, not going to have any polish or fancy finish to it. Just want to see what the effect is. Trying different ways, representing what I see. So the colours I've got for the bands are, I've got just some ordinary watercolour pencils. I'm not going to use them with water. They make just really nice dry drawing pencils. So let's see what the yellow looks like when it goes across the graphite. Which is quite satisfactory. It's quite interesting. That would do quite well. It's one way of doing it. Make the purple across there. Now that's interesting. When the purple goes across the graphite, it really covers it up, and I can't see that there's a shadow there, which you can with the yellow, can't you? You can't really see it's there with the purple. Purple's really dominated it, and I expect it'll be the same. Yeah, same with the black. And would that be the same if I put the colours down first and then shaded over them? Let's first test. And then back with the graphite pencil, shade over the top. Once again, it's very visible with the yellow, but less so over the purple and over the black. So what I'd probably have to do would be to pay particular attention to those areas. Actually add a little bit more shading over those strong colours so that you can see the shadow falling over them. That would be a solution if I was just using graphite to do the shadows with. But as I said, I want to get some colour into the shadows. The fascinating thing about shadows is that they are affected by the colour of the light that's shining and also the colour of everything that's around. So colour bounces into shadows from other places, other things in the room, and in this case with the coloured bands, I think, are actually bouncing some of their colour into the shadows, as well as the shadows going over those colours, which affects the colour of the shadows. Anyway, so I've picked out a couple of Graphitint pencils and a Inktense pencil, just from testing a few out, a few sort of grey browns and yellowy colours. And of course these colours I can mix as well. That's the mustard. This is it's called Autumn Brown, this one. And these colours do actually change quite a lot when they're wet, but I just want to use them dry today. This one is Sage, which is much more of a grey colour. It's not really what I would call sage. Sage is, for me, is more of a bluey green. Anyway, that's what they call sage. It's all very subjective, the naming of colours. So, looking at the colour of my shadows, I can see quite a lot of that sage colour, but also with the yellow, that, what do they call it? Mustard. So there's my grey colour and the mustard over the top. To me, that looks like most of the shadow colour, which you can see the difference between that and the graphite. Okay, so once again I'll do the same test. I will use mostly those. I might just have a bit of the autumn brown in here and there where the shadow goes a bit more pinky, but I think this is going to be doing most of the work. So I'll do the same test. I'll do a bit of shading, like this is the fold of the book, and this is one of those cast shadows that goes into the fold. It's darker towards the fold, and it gets a little bit lighter the further away from the fold it is, and that other face has a bit of shadow on it as well. And just, I'm going to put that one down for now. A bit of the yellow over it as well. And then the colours on top of that. There's the yellow. Looking good. Let's see that would be a yellow colour with a shadow falling across it. Let's see with the purple again. Oh, that's quite good. That's better than the graphite. Really looks like it's, I feel like it's sort of mixing together with the colour I've already put on the paper. Maybe I'm also making that a little bit paler than I did before. Let's try, just for the sake of fairness, let's make that as strong as I did over here. And I can still see the shadow better in that area than I could there. That's encouraging. And the black. No, that seems to cover it up. So I'm beginning to think that I will need to put in all the coloured bands first and then do my shading on top. It's really well worth spending time doing these tests and thinking in advance, sort of making a plan about the order in which you're going to do your drawing. Now, I wouldn't ever say that this is the correct way to do it, because it's just a way of doing it. It's my way of doing it today. And please do explore your own ideas and find your own way of of creating your drawing using whatever colours, or not colour if you're not inclined to use colour yet. It's your drawing, your time. You decide how you want to do it. See, maybe putting the colour on top actually swamps that yellow. It shows up very well over the purple and the black. I think I'm going to have to be careful when I go over the yellow. In fact, I don't know whether I want to do it this way now, because that's really covering up the yellow. What could I do? Maybe I could go back with the yellow and go over that again. That just makes it much darker, doesn't it? There's going to have to be some toing and froing with the colour of the bands and the colour of the shadows. But yeah, exercise worth spending some time over. I think I will get some colour in the bands first. Yeah, it's going to take some time to get all the colour on. So I shall switch the camera off for a bit and then start filming again when I've done the colouring in. Okay, there's some colour on. Let's work on those shadows. You can see I habitually hold the pencil a long way from the mark making end when I'm trying to make a very faint mark. Sometimes you need to come in a little bit close to the mark making end if you want to be a bit more precise when you come in close to edges. I'm trying to be very careful not to get too much shading on too early, because it's better to build it up from light shadows to darker shadows rather than going in with a very with a hard grip and some pressure. It's it's rather easy to create too dark a shadow this way, so this was just like stepping back and being very careful not to put too much pressure on. Of course, I'm continually checking back with the subject, which I can see in front of me. I just lift my eyes to keep looking and thinking about what I really see rather than what I think might be there. It's very easy to find you're looking at your drawing more than you're looking at the subject. And then you realise that you're actually making things up rather than putting in what's really there. So this is kind of going to be my base colour of shadows, this It's kind of a coloured grey. It's really hard to describe what colour this is. It's called sage, but I don't know. It's definitely got a brownish look about it to me. I suppose it's a cool brown, but being brown, it's warmer than grey. Every colour is relative. And down here is where I can see quite a lot of pink in the shadow, so I'm stepping back even further with this colour. I'm going to shade with a little bit of that red or chestnut brown over the top of this base shadow colour. You can see here in this area where the shadow is close to the thing that's casting the shadow. It's quite dark and crisp at the edge. Then the further away the shadow gets from what's casting the shadow, the more out of focus it is. And then where it's actually on this page, this face of the zig-zag book, it's very, very soft. It's always been quite an enjoyable thing to do. To me, I'm enjoying drawing this subject, but it also has a learning point to it as well. It's application to other things. If you think, for example, of representing a lemon in a still life, it's quite challenging to decide what colour to use to mix with the yellow of the lemon to create the shadow side of the lemon. Or maybe you could, thinking about flower painting, what colour would the shadows need to be if you were painting a daffodil or any other, sunflower, any other yellow flower? Or similarly, if it's a mauve or purple flower, how do you represent the shadows on those? I got a little bit distracted then because there's a bird right by the window. There's a honeysuckle growing over the window next to me while I'm working. And a little bird hopping around right near the window. It can't see me because the window is frosted. It's lovely to share this space with nature down here in the studio. Right, that's the first bit of shadow. I'm just going to do this end of the book in this video. You can see I've outlined where the other colours are going to be, but I thought it would be interesting just to complete the shading of one section of the book, and then you can compare it to the unfinished bit. Just beginning to have a feeling of three-dimensionality. And depending on how much time you've got, you could leave your drawing at any stage. Finished or unfinished, it really doesn't matter. As long as you've spent some nice relaxing time taking a look at a subject, paying it your entirely focused attention, which is something we tend not to do. So many other reasons to be looking at things, and they're usually practical reasons, like you're trying not to bump into them, or you're just identifying what they are.
where you want to put them. You're taking in so much information about lots of different things. Sitting down to do a drawing of something is your chance to slow all that down, calm down your mind, just focus your attention for a short time just on one thing. It's got to be good for you. Try not to worry about the result of your drawing. It's not going to pass any exams. That's not the reason why we're doing it. Not even doing it with the aim of making a pretty picture to put in a frame, to put on the wall. That could be a byproduct at some point. But it's not the main aim for doing this kind of drawing. I've not actually put this band in quite the right place. I should have a bit more white below it, but never mind. A little bit of shadow there, cast from this side. Light coming from different parts of the room. Some reflected light. That's why there's all this reflected light in here, because there's a sort of a secondary light source coming in from this direction. Main light source is over here, which is why we've got these strong cast shadows. But there is a little bit of light shining this way, and of course the light that shines on this face bounces into that face as well. Right, let's put a bit of the pink in that shadow there at the bottom. I'm not really worried that I've lost the line there, but I can get that back by going back in with the black colour, strengthening that area. There's also a little white line that I've shaded over, which perhaps I shouldn't have done, but never mind. There's yellow in that shadow as well, isn't there? Gosh, it's really quite strong. I wonder where that comes from. Must be reflecting into it from something around. Now there's a thing with the colour of shadows where they tend to be the opposite colour to the colour of the light. Well, that would imply that the light is purplish. So maybe the light's bouncing off something purple and creating yellow in the shadow. It's definitely yellow down there. Really quite strong. I wonder where that comes from. Strange thing, that. Very strange. There's my pink. There's a pink in there. I love the look of coloured pencil shading. It reminds me of the Raymond Briggs Father Christmas videos and the books. Texture of pencil on the slightly rough surface of cartridge paper I'm using. The more you look at shadows, the more you will see the colours. It doesn't always strike you straight away, and if you've not really made a study of shadows, which I have quite a lot, I've got a bit of a thing about shadows, but if you've not really looked at them much before, you may not see these colours, but I expect they will come to you. The more you draw and the more you look, the more you see. Wonderful thing, drawing. You might be able to see every now and then I stop making any marks and then I carry on, and it's when I've lifted my eyes to look more carefully at the subject. So I'll go like this and then it stops, which is because I'm looking up. Sometimes I'm just glancing up and down as I'm carry on making the marks, but if I want to really think about something more specifically, I stop. It's interesting to watch yourself, see what you do. See, the grip's changed or controlled down here. To make a more specific statement about this area where there's a tiny little bit of light shining underneath. The page of the book doesn't sit quite down to the surface it's on. Can tell from watching this part of the video how long it's going to take to specifically render the whole of this shadow area. So that's just the basic shading put on without looking particularly at differences in colour. And now I'm beginning to work into this area here. You can see it's a very, very slow process of building up. At some point, I'll do it now, I'll go back in with the colour and redefine the edge of the painted band, which is beginning to lose its definition a little bit there. Needs to go a bit darker where it's under the shadow. I should be able to get that corner back in as well there. Put that little gap in as well. The paintbrush skipped over the corner. I didn't quite get the fold covered with paint. See, I keep changing direction with the shading as well. That's my habit. when I'm working on an area like this, I'm also keeping an eye on that area so that it all sort of rationalises together, makes sense. Every now and then I'll stop and sort of take an objective view rather than looking just at one area at a time, finishing it and going on to do the next. I want to sort of keep an overall eye on the whole thing. Now, where's that main sage colour? I need to darken the shadow in here first. Get this corner defined. So different, the effect of the shadow on yellow compared to how it looks on the purple and the black, and I'm having to deal with it in a different way. I can't make yellow look darker than yellow. It's such a pale colour, you can't really make it darker than itself, whereas I can with purple. It can be darker purple and lighter purple, and darker black and lighter black. But yellow's a challenge. Yellow's, like, you know, yellow is yellow. You can make it a bit paler, but you can't make it any darker. So I'm going to use the mustard colour just to darken this area. So obviously that's a yellowy colour, but it's got some browny tinge to it. I need to strengthen up this shadow through here. Sage colour. How's that looking? Oh, not too bad. Not too bad at all. Starting to look like a three-dimensional shape in space on a surface. Just interesting how a small line like that gives the thing a place to be in rather than just floating in the air. So, not finished yet, but I hope that's shown you some ideas that you might like to try out yourself. But as I say, do try things out for yourself as well. Try other ways of solving similar problems. And have a nice relaxing day.